So we will really just dive right in here. But I'm so excited to have you ladies on. We met at a Longchamp dinner like 6 months ago. Totally hit it off, bonded about all things New York, LA, working in media. But give yourself like a brief little intro. Whoever wants to go first, please do.
For sure. So I'm Beatrice Hazlehurst, from New Zealand originally and in LA, I guess, via New York. I'm freelance now, but was in-house at Vice and Paper. R.I.P. to both.
R.I.P. to both, but like major cool girl vibes.
Yeah.
So cool.
And yeah, I'm an entertainment culture journalist. My bylines kind of span like Elle, Vanity Fair, ID. Yeah, and I now host a podcast called Uncover Girl, which is media focused. It unpacks the most chaotic cover stories of all time.
Which is so sick and so up your alley.
Yeah. It's actually the funnest thing I could imagine because it's all I like love to do and send friends. Oh my God, this is a crazy celebrity interview. We've got to get into the meat of it.
And it's amazing, if I may interject.
It's so good.
I love that podcast.
And this will definitely be linked in the show notes.
Oh my God, God bless you. We love women supporting women.
Yeah,
Is it my turn?
Yes,
that's you.
Go.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Savannah Sitton. I don't have an impressive background like Beatrice.
No, you absolutely do. Please don't be humble.
Okay, let me see. I came from some of the publications I've written for: Cosmopolitan, the Zoe Report, editorialist, of course, which we both overlapped to editorialist, which is so funny because we never even like knew each other there. And now I'm with Fashionista, market editor,
which is so incredible. So yes, you should be very proud of that.
Oh, thanks.
And both of you have 6 styles.
Thank
so we have
you.
lots of stuff here.
So do you.
Thank you.
No, you do. I think you have to have 6 styles to be a fashion editor. So
it's minimalist queen.
Yeah. You're being humble. You're being humble.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So we are in not so sunny LA right now.
Yes.
But let's dive in. So both of you lived in New York City. You've been out here. What was like that decision to move your careers out here?
Because COVID.
Yeah. Yes.
The pandemic.
Yeah, COVID, I think for both of us was the prompt. New York City is one of these places, I mean, everyone compares it to an abusive relationship where it's like, when it's good, it's good. When it's bad, it's so bad, but you feel like you can't leave. I had a friend come out here first who's also a journalist, and I had just met a man out here, came out for a meeting with Playboy, which is really just an excuse to see him.
Ooh.
And I met her just before this meeting, and she said, you'd be a fool if you didn't come out here. She was like, there are no journalists. Yeah. It's like, obviously New York is so saturated. She was like, you have the full lay of the land, complete freedom and crazy access because the celebrities are all here. Everyone is, true. And now you're seeing Chanel, Dior, Louis Vuitton all having their shows out here. It's just a massive shift that I've noticed. And I mean, I feel like I kind of rode the wave, and then COVID really pushed me that last little way. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree. I think definitely there was a big shift happened like during the pandemic where everyone in New York kind of wanted to like get some sun and some trees and some grass. So everyone
what a concept.
What a concept. Everyone wanted to touch grass. So everyone came out here. And yeah, I think too, for me, I was going on my 7th year in New York City. I had finished school there. I went to graduate school there.
7-year itch, literally.
Yeah, 7-year itch. That's what happened.
I'm at year 7.
Are you?
This all makes
sense.
You
gotta come over.
This all makes sense.
Are you itchy?
No.
How are you?
I'm like pretty itchy.
Yeah, you gotta. I think it's it's just so hard to be like. It's so hard to have it all together in New York. I know that can be true literally anywhere, but in New York, especially, like my health declined. I was doing too many things at once between like all these jobs and internships, and it was just like too much. I definitely, when I came out here, had a little bit of a lifestyle change. I slowed it down, which was amazing.
Which is so interesting because you're from the East Coast. Like you grew up in such close proximity to the city.
So maybe I already had gotten kind of that like New York City itch out of me in some ways because like I literally grew up coming into the city. As soon as I was old enough, my parents would take me into Broadway. We'd take me into restaurants in the city. Like I spent so much time here.
Yeah.
So when I graduated high school, I was like, I'm getting the hell out of the East Coast. And I went all the way to San Diego. I was there 2 years. There was no fashion program at the college I went to.
Where did you go?
SDSU.
I was looking at SDSU.
No, really?
Yeah, and I was like gonna do
Aztecs.
Media, and then I wanted to do fashion, so that's how I ended up at Kent.
There was no fashion there.
No
Fashion and
all
very
right, well,
small
I guess I
media.
made my choice, but
Exactly.
Yeah.
So where'd you end up going?
Kent State.
Oh, Kent. Yeah, Kent's great.
They were great for fashion. They had a good media program, so it was like you double dipped into both.
Totally.
And I was like, they had a New York campus, so I spent a year there, and then graduated early. So I was like, get me the fuck out of here.
Perfect. Yeah, you did it the right way.
Yeah.
And you ended up at Parsons? I forget.
Yeah, so after San Diego, I transferred into Parsons, and that was like, just the best decision I ever could have made. I loved my college experience from then on. I finished my bachelor's, I got my master's, I got my associate's degree. It was just, I literally told my parents, I was like, I never want to leave college. I just kept getting degrees. I was like, I never want to leave. I loved it.
So funny.
And I was interning and then eventually started working. And it was really just, that was my like hustle culture period of my life.
Yeah.
I was listening to your Girl Boss episode recently, which I love, by the way.
My gosh,
That was so near and dear to my heart because you just hit on everything that, I think it's, especially when you're living in New York and you're like a young fashion girly and you're just like beating yourself up because you're like, I have to do it all. I have to be so efficient all times. That's over for me. That's in the past.
Optimizing the time. Yeah.
Right, and you have like the opportunities at your fingertips that it feels silly to have all of that there and then not be taking advantage. So you're like, 100%. Okay, I'm gonna go and like get it all done.
Yeah.
What were your guys' first jobs and like how did you get them? Like entering into this crazy media world?
Great question. I mean, for me, it was in New Zealand, but I basically started working for a fashion magazine while I was in film school. And that's kind of what I fell into this industry a little bit from that as a byproduct.
That's funny.
But I wrote a really viral article for our national newspaper, and that's what kind of got me Notice Advice. And then my career kind of kicked off from there. So it's interesting. I've always kind of had the same type of journalism where it's been very kind of deep. I've been attracted to the same type of subject matter, rich people behaving badly or like the underbelly of certain subcultures or whatever it might be. And that was what really kicked me off. Yeah.
That's so interesting.
So wild.
That's so interesting. I think my first like foyer into the editorial world was definitely my internship at Cosmo. Which is still like one of my most fond internships of all time. Sorry, fellowship. We're supposed to call it fellowship now. For legal reasons, it's a fellowship. And that was, I don't know. I went to San Diego State, like I said, and I just did not know what I wanted to do there, like most freshmen. And I think kind of along the way, I just realized like magazines were the only thing that I really cared about and that I really had this passion for. So when I came to New York, it's so funny. Do you want to? I had a very like Devil Wears Prada moment getting my first internship.
Please tell it. Yes.
Okay, I will. Just to like teach the youngins that this does work. Sometimes you have to like do a little unconventional. But Cosmo every year would have this like fun, fearless conference.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
They had them in the city. I think they only had like 3 or 4. But my second one, I had just moved to New York and I was like, I knew I wanted a job at Cosmo. So I got all like dressed and ready for the part. I wore like a 3-piece all white suit with a jacket. I was like photographed there. It was like this whole big thing. And I had spent like days in the Parsons like printing room printing my resume on pink paper with Cosmopolitan masthead.
So Elwood.
Oh my God. Yes, it is so Elwood of you.
Oh my goodness. Is it perfumed?
No, but it should have been.
It honestly should have been.
It should have been. And of course, so I went to the conference and I just walked right up to Joanna and her assistant Heather. Joanna was the EIC at the time. Yes. And I handed it to her and I blacked out, so I don't remember what I said, but it was probably, along the lines of I love you, I want to work here. And then I just walked away. I didn't get her email. I didn't get anything. And it was actually my boss at the time at the internship I had who called Monday morning and somehow got through her like line of phone calls, got her assistant on the phone and was like, you need to hire Savannah. She'll be great. And then I started the next semester.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you watch the Bold Type?
No, I didn't actually.
You have
they were recording it while I was there. Because I was there in like
Did you watch
15,
it?
Oh, I watched
14,
it. It's
15.
hilarious.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
Was it good?
You spend a month on an article type of unrealistic.
Yeah, like I don't know if good is the right word for it.
It's camp.
Yeah,
Would I enjoy it?
It's very camp. Yeah, no, you would love it if you went back.
I think I should go back.
Yeah,
you would love it.
Okay,
yeah, it's like Emily in Paris sort of.
Oh
yes,
my God,
exact,
I love it.
Perfect comp.
Yeah,
perfect comp.
But for the media girlies.
That is it.
I love it.
Okay, wait. So let's talk about like New York media too. Now that we're bold typing in,
definitely.
Did you guys did you know what to expect when you were going in? Do you think that the stereotypes were accurate? Like, did you have Devil Wears Prada moments, or did you think it was a lot more fun?
Yeah, absolutely.
I did too.
100%.
Yeah, but I think it was truly chicken and egg situation where it was like, you played, or the higher ups or executives at whatever magazine outlet you're at kind of played into that stereotype because that's what they were taught. It was almost like a conditioning.
Oh, 100% of conditioning.
Yeah. I remember I had a boss who, I mean, he loved drinking Diet Coke. That was his thing. He had a mini fridge and he was.
Go for one right now.
Oh my God. He was constantly cracking them in meetings. And even though, you know, I mean, fair enough, it really felt like he was waiting for like the Vanity Fair profile to hit where they say, you know, and Drew like loves a Diet Coke. It did really feel like that. And I think
scripted.
Yes, just almost like part of the role. Like it was almost playing a character in that sense. And I felt like we all did too. We all played our own parts and we played our own characters.
Oh my God. Absolutely. I love how you put that. It is so freaking true.
Oh my God.
Like the amount of like green juices that you have to go pick up the juice and it would have to be separate than the ice with the green salad and then drop off the book at your boss's on the way home.
Yeah.
I was like,
did you do that?
oh yeah.
Oh, I never had that.
Oh,
you had the book in your hand.
Oh, I had the book in my hand.
Oh
yeah.
my God.
I would go drop it off at my boss's. She lived on the Upper East Side. And you know, like the west part, like closer you are to the park, the Upper East Side is like very nice. I mean, millions and millions and millions. And then on the east side of Upper East, it's like there's a lot of post grads live up there. Like it was cheap. So we lived honestly like she was on, I want to say like the upper 60s and I was like the lower 60s, but all the way east.
Right.
So I would go like take the subway over there, drop it off, walk like however long that was. It was long, like in the rain and the like inches.
But did you love it? Because when I was young and I was doing that shit, I loved it.
Oh.
Sorry, I just cursed.
No. Oh, please curse.
Okay.
Oh my God. No, I thought it was like
The
so
best.
badass.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, I can get this done. And then I'm going to go
Totally.
home and eat like a handful of almonds because I can't afford food.
That's the
And
thing.
like,
Totally.
I'm slaying it.
No,
though.
you're playing into the fantasy for sure.
Yeah.
It does feel like that. I
The
remember
lucky to be here fantasy, the like I should count my blessings. So many people would take my space type of thing. And that was also something that was like said. Like I remember that being said at
1,000
internships.
girls would kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just be like, okay.
Like,
Okay.
well,
Then go find them.
yeah, like, go find them.
Go
I'm
find
here
them.
right
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
So.
I think for that, I mean, there was no, you guys will probably remember this, there's no real salary transparency or any way to be promoted or to feel like you are advancing either like financially or literally title-wise, because it literally was just like, there was just so much, there was this culture of or like conspiracy of secrecy. Like it was very interesting. I remember trying to get a raise for years and eventually getting offered 5 extra vacation days in lieu of a pay bump. But asking, you know, other editors who are my same job title, you know, what are you getting paid? I'm going into these negotiations and them saying, you know, sorry, like I'm not comfortable with that.
Really?
Yeah, and there's been a whole culture shift now, but God, it was very dog eat dog. Everyone's here for themselves in a lot of ways. And yeah, that sense of competition, I don't know about you guys, I don't feel to the same extent anymore.
No, I feel like post-COVID, it totally faded.
Yes.
And like, I know all the New York girls now. I know like you guys in LA. And it's like fun going to the dinners. I feel like I'm going to hang out with friends.
Yeah.
Versus before, oh my God, I'd walk into a press preview. I wouldn't speak to anybody. Like you'd go in, like I was always in market. So like I'd go in, get my pictures and like run out of there and be like, okay, I have to get back to my desk.
I still have those days.
I mean, 100%. But like I'll sit and talk to a PR or sit and talk to, you know, I run into friends that are there and I'll like always chat. But like we wouldn't like make eye contact with each other.
Well, that also could have just been you were younger. Maybe you didn't know to like choose
that too.
and play the part a little.
That too. But yeah, I feel like peer-to-peer, it wasn't a thing.
Did you feel like you were too competitive with one another?
I don't even know if it was so much a competition, but it was
just like from the job perspective.
Yes, like from a job perspective, I think a competition in a sense, but also just like you were also separate. Like you were doing your own thing and it was like, get in, you do this. Like, I don't know, it just wasn't like a friendly environment that I feel like it is now.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that may be a shift from the pandemic, but I like much prefer it now. I much prefer all the media girlies like enjoying to talk at an event and like making friends with everybody. It just makes it so much more enjoyable.
I agree. Okay, I also want to touch on too, like this idea, we're talking about like salary transparency or like what it's like at the other publications. And now we have these dinners all the time. I was out at a press dinner the other week and like we're all salary transparent, like sitting at a dinner, which I think is so interesting and nice to have this culture be growing.
Yeah.
But I think also too, so many of us have gone freelance, like
Yeah.
all of us here. What do you think like the biggest shifts? Like, do you enjoy being freelance more, especially being out in LA? Like, what are some of those differences? Do you
We have a very different feeling and approach.
Yeah, I'll let Beatrice take us away.
I'm excited.
I think in my early freelance career, I was so wrapped up in the clout of New York and media, and I wanted all the bylines. I just wanted a stacked roster.
I did too.
Yeah,
Yes.
look where I've written and look what I've accomplished. And I very quickly kind of caught on when I was officially freelance, which was truly in the months leading up to the pandemic. And then from that point on, was that there was just no way to really make a feasible living doing that. And just strictly editorial.
Yeah.
And so I had to really pivot and let go of this concept of what was cool to me and what was making it and survival to me. And that meant entering the copy space, writing for brands. And everyone I know who's a really successful writer has also done that.
Totally.
The Alison P. Davises of the world, who are, just such incredible, storied journalists, but also, cut their teeth in the brand space and have other projects going on. And
I think you said it to me before.
Yeah.
That's where the money is.
That's where the money is.
is.
And if you can have that kind of steadiness and sustainability, then you get to pick and choose and cherry pick the work that you want to do editorially. And it doesn't feel like such a grind. It doesn't burn you out the same way. Right. I think I was just getting so over the constant, this has been published, what's next? Mm-hmm. Pitching, 6 stories every week and juggling them all. And it's tough to slowly do that. Yeah.
I set my business up like yours too.
Yeah.
Where I have like one consistent thing where you guys know mine is trend forecasting. And God, yeah, the stress though of when it was just editorial and never knowing. And it was scary in the sense too of like, like all businesses, sometimes a budget dries up when you don't know. Mm-hmm. Like, oh shit, well, what happens now? That was my only source of income.
Absolutely.
The stress took away from the fun of it and the excitement and like that fire to like, oh, I really want to do XYZ creative thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And watching everyone obviously getting laid off in these waves from 2020 onwards has been so interesting, because I remember when being in house, I thought, I wish I was freelancing more. I wish I freelanced more while I was in house and built my contacts and really became known as a writer for hire. Mm-hmm. But I didn't. I was so focused and wrapped up in the kind of insular world of my specific magazine.
I would have been scared too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't. We had no non-compete. It would have been totally fine, and I think it would have been the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. But I truly didn't think of it until it was too late. And then I was like, wow, I have to start from scratch. No one knows me. No one's really read any of my work at this magazine.
Right.
I need to like really get out there and talk to editors and meet people and press the flesh and cold email over and over again and pitch and pitch and pitch and pitch. And I think I would have eased my way if I had kind of started that while I still had the steady salaried income.
For sure.
But you never think of that when you're doing
You
it.
never do.
When you have a full-time job and you're doing all the other stuff, you're never like, oh, what's more work I can be
totally
doing?
Yeah.
Where's more freelancing I could be doing?
Oh my God, I had one of my editors who's in-house at a very cool, culturally significant magazine message me the other day and say, do you have any copy work for me that you don't need? And that really hit home to me. She was like, I can't afford to live in New York on my salary, even though she is in-house and she is like a managing editor. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, when I was saying about this dinner I was mentioning, and everyone was being really salary transparent, and it was amazing to see. But I was like, I'm making over double than what everyone is in-house.
Yes.
And sometimes when I'm like, ooh, it would be really cool to go back, like sometimes they get better perks than we do, or the consistency or whatever it might be. But I'm like, I kind of like my lifestyle.
Yes.
Give it up.
No, absolutely. And for what? Like, what are you giving it up for? The name?
Right.
The household name?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's the question. Are you caught up in the clout again? Like, of what it means to be like, I don't know, Kendall Becker Vogue,
Right.
That's the question.
I know. And it's a big question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My turn.
Yeah. Well, what are your feelings on freelance? Like, are you liking it or what's
I do like it. I've been doing it for about like 3 years now, I'd say. I definitely kind of similarly probably wouldn't, it wasn't my choice. And I probably wouldn't have made that choice for myself simply because I didn't know what it entails. But now that, I like it. I like it, except for the fact that I did like at my past publications when you are on staff, especially if you have an editor job, you can be a little more forward facing. And I also was doing like copy jobs, and I still do copy freelance jobs just to make money. But I hate those because I like being creative and I like being, having that like editor title. And like at Fashionista, I enjoy my market edits and reviewing things and like just being a forward-facing editor, which you can't really get as a freelancer. I mean, you can actually, because a lot of places do permalance. So it just depends.
I think what's tough with being freelance and having some of those like the dinners, the press previews and all of that, you forget that you're not paid for those.
Totally.
Like, those are coming out of your own time and dollars.
Oh my gosh, you're so
versus
right.
like when you're in-house, you're like, well, it's, I'm working.
That's why you always
on the
ask
clock
for
is
Uber
9 to
code.
5.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, get those Uber codes, girl. Yes, absolutely.
But I felt way more policed when I was in-house. I felt way more on the clock. I'm like in an event, maybe midday, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta get back. This is such a bad look. My editor's gonna be on me for this.
That's the pros and cons.
Yeah. So but I definitely feel the time thing. Like I'm like, okay, this is burning a hole in my pocket in terms of
It's the pros and cons of it. It is. I love no one breathing down my neck. That is very lovely.
Love the freedom, hate the maybe instability. Hate maybe the not having a safety net.
But that's the thing. Is there stability in house anymore? I don't think there is.
And there's not because you don't know what
you never know.
Applications
you never know.
Like, no tomorrow.
It's true. It really is a sticky time to be in this industry.
Oh my God. It is.
I mean, it always has been, but
I want to hear your takes on LA now. So you guys are settled in for a minute. You've have your businesses up and running here. What does it look like? Like, what are your LA pros and cons?
I love it here.
Yeah, we've heard.
You guys are thriving here, truly.
Really, we are.
It's really interesting for me because I've now just started dipping my toes into Hollywood in the truest sense, which is a whole nother beast and so bizarre and a realm that I truly never envisioned for myself. And that
Hollywood, like show business.
Like show business. Show business, baby.
Yes.
Oh my God, it's such a different, obviously we work in an industry where there's never been any money, famously. And there's a lot of money to be made, obviously, in this, and people are absolutely, I think, ruthless in the face of it and like ready to take you down. It's such a different world. And so that has now kind of shaped and informed my LA experience a little bit because I'm like, okay, I don't know if I would be having the conversations I am, having the access that I am, even doing what I'm doing now had I stayed in New York. I don't think I would have had the room, the space, the lifestyle.
Definitely not.
I was very running around to events 24/7. We were just talking about always running around, always out. And that was my lifeblood. That's the way I operated. And my focus wasn't necessarily work. It was more being seen and seeing and, the visibility of it all.
Yes. I always say with New York too, it's a great place to go put your work into action. Like you're constantly going, you're doing, you can network, like all this stuff.
Absolutely.
But I don't have ideas or the space to explore when I'm there. So maybe it is stumbling into show business in some aspect. Like when you're in New York, I feel like it's very tunnel vision.
Yes.
Okay, I have this dinner, then I'm going here, then I'm going here, then I'm going here.
It's granular, kind of. Yeah, you don't really step back and look at the big picture and look at kind of what you're accomplishing.
Exactly.
Until you're alone in your apartment, right? Like one night, and you're just like, oh my God, am I okay?
Literally. And I'm sure we can all recall that moment.
Several moments.
Several moments. Yeah, many moments. How do you feel, Seth?
I love LA. It was very, like I said, I made a big shift when I moved here and I just kind of slowed down. I really wanted to prioritize my health, my mental health, and just kind of find stability in work that wasn't as crazy as New York because same, it's just you're constantly going in New York, whether it was showrooms, dinners, or just meetings, constant. And it's funny because, like I was saying before we started, I didn't do too many PR events when I lived in the city. I don't know, it just wasn't on my radar. I was so busy with all the other like jobs and internships and stuff. So when I moved to LA and the pandemic rules started to slowly, lift and everyone started to have these events again, I just jumped in head first. And I loved it.
It's fun.
Like, it's so much fun. I love networking. I love meeting like girls that do the same stuff as me. I think in New York, I was very siloed in that way. Like you were just saying, like, and when you do have friends, like when you do have a bestie at work, it still was, like you said, like a little competition.
Yeah.
And that's just natural because I'm honestly, even though I'm an Aries, I'm one of the least competitive people, especially when it comes to work. Like I'm very much just like, everyone can win. Everyone can win.
You're so supportive. Yeah,
I know.
You're such a kind-hearted, like soft Aries.
I am a soft Aries. Thank you so much for saying that. It means a lot to me. But yeah, so when I came out here and it just felt different. It felt like when I was going to these events, everyone did want to talk and everyone wanted to, follow you on Instagram and keep up with you and whatever. So nice. Yes, it really is so nice. And I think that's why I've kind of jumped in like head first going to all these things here in LA.
But you have to think it's because this landscape out here is so much less saturated.
Oh, 100%.
That the competition's not there the same way.
100%.
Yeah.
I was not getting the invites that I get here in New York. Like, I'm getting like truly, and now I've been able to, pick and choose the things that I do. And whereas when I first started out, you're definitely just going to like every invitation you can get your hands on. Do you remember in Fashion Week when you would get like literally these invites that you've never heard of, but you're like, it's Fashion Week, let's go.
Like, I'm going.
Yeah, I'm going.
And
I went to Russia.
What?
Yeah,
that's such a Beatrice thing to say.
No, I went to Moscow Fashion Week just because I was like, why not, baby? Let's go.
Hell yeah.
That's like kind of a sick experience.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
What was that like?
No, it was obviously before pre-war, so like what a time.
Oh,
but no, it was incredible. It was I know. It was amazing. It really was amazing. But that's the thing. It was like, oh my God, this feels once in a lifetime. I went to a sex resort in Jamaica. I went just kind of took everything I could.
When you say you do these things, you get invited.
You get invited
to write about it.
Mm-hmm.
So what publications were sending you to write about these things?
So I would do a lot of travel writing specifically and I became known for that with L'Officiel. That was kind of the main thing. But some of them were while I was in house. Moscow was for Fashionista. I found the story within the trip and then pitched it to the relevant the relevant outlet. But no, I mean, it's so some of those experiences, and I think about it now. If you were to say, I actually did have this opportunity last year, someone was like, do you want to come to Switzerland? Mm-hmm. And I just was kind of like, it's really far to go.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, it was like it's 3 days and it's so far. It's Europe. And I just was kind of like, I don't know if I'm up to it now. Yeah. And it's so funny. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago, I would have absolutely just jumped to the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so like that life is interesting.
Do you think that has more to do with like living in New York or more to do just like where you were in your career at that time, like your age?
Both. Yeah. More energy for sure.
Absolutely.
But this outlook or this approach of like tomorrow's not promised. Mm-hmm. And you're like you talk about, you're taking it one day at a time. It's really granular. You're not looking at the overall picture, which is like, okay, if I go to Moscow for a week, I lose a week of work. I'm not going to make money next month, but like it's okay.
And like, right, like I should take this opportunity because it's in front of me.
Oh my God.
I do think it is a twofold of like leaving New York and then also being further in your career where you're like, okay, no, I can say
I can choose.
Yes.
Exactly. Okay. With that being said too, like being in LA and now you like, I mean, presumably have a bit more time and like more mental space. Like what are other things that you're doing that just make you feel more holistically like
a lot of exercise.
Human and not just
a lot of yoga,
a fashion robot.
A lot of yoga, spending a lot of time outside, which sounds so cheesy, but that really was like when I moved here to LA, I was like, I just need fresh air because you just can't get it in New York. Like my rooftop didn't count. I'm sorry, my rooftop didn't cut. Feeling like I was
not
in
a green space.
It's not a green space.
Not a green space.
Guys, I die whenever I get back here. The air, even though it's infused with smog, you can like smell plants.
Yeah.
Walking down the street and you're like, oh my God,
well, it's not humid here. And that's like the biggest thing. that you could you could walk somewhere and not have your makeup melting off. That was a big thing in New York.
Okay,
lovely.
Right? That was one of the biggest shocks to me on movie. I remember saying to a friend who was working with me, how do you actually deal with the sweat? Like when it's, and she said, you hold an iced coffee. That's what she told, that was the advice I got.
Shut up.
We were in the subway. She was like,
she
was like, you need to hold something iced. And if you can get a baby fan, do it. But I was like, I've never seen people dripping with sweat in my life like this.
I have to say this just because you're making me remember my first day at Parsons when I moved from San Diego to New York. I was I was in a sorority in San Diego, so I was like very much like full face of makeup, like full hair done every day. So I show up to my first class. My glue from my falsies was dripping down my cheek.
Yep.
And I was just sat through the whole class because I had no idea. And afterwards I was like, I'm just not gonna, this is my no makeup era. I just can't do it.
Oh my God.
I'm not doing a full face of makeup to class every day if it's just gonna
I do a full face of makeup every day. Every day.
Oh yeah.
Good for you. Power to you.
No, I'm looking back now, I'm like, how? That's another thing about moving to LA. It's like I never wear makeup. I'm just, it's a completely different.
Oh, it's
so laid back.
I was explaining to somebody what it was like pre-COVID, especially like taking the subway in the summer. And I was like, oh no, you would like pack on the 6 train, you're shoulder to shoulder. There's like a big man like sweating on you.
It was so gross.
By the time your hair is literally wet because the big man's back sweat.
Literally.
Like so disgusting. And then you're like, okay, now I'm going to my fashion job.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Going back feels to me like a small town. I've seen everyone I have ever met in my life. I'm questioning every guy on the street. Did I like go on a date with him or sleep with him or like truly spiraling out? Like, oh my God. It's like, get me out of here. Here you get to be really anonymous, I feel.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
It's because that's just the culture of LA. Everyone wants to be anonymous, which I guess just goes with the
that's so funny. Everyone wants to be famous. It's such a...
Well, it just depends on what you're talking about.
True.
Because like if I'm going to an event, like obviously you're going to see people that want to be seen and like, you're going to see those people. But on just the day-to-day, I don't wear makeup. I will wear leggings out. And I feel like that's a lot of LA kind of does the same thing.
I feel like you can pick and choose when you want to be seen.
Totally.
Yeah. So if you're like in that mood.
You can do that in New York too.
Yes. But like because
you're always
walking
you're
everywhere.
always on.
Oh my God, I'm always running into people. I'm running into exes. I'm running into some girl I went to college with.
Yeah,
I'm like going to Body Rock. Like I'm just like, what?
You always have to be on in that respect as well.
Yeah.
Also, for me, it was so many in-person interviews with talent. So like I'm going to lunch with like French Montana and I know like I'm like I've got to be done, you know? Obviously. Or you know, you're always meeting. I remember I was working at Paper at the time, walking into the lobby and Cardi B was sitting there on the couch.
Oh my God. And yes, that stuff would happen all the time.
All the time. And someone was just like to me, that's that rapper girl from the Bronx and like she's coming in for a meeting. Do you want to sit in? And I was like, oh, okay, yep.
And just like classic.
Meanwhile, I have my subway.
No one knows who anyone is or what's going on at all times. Like I'm like, so who is that?
You catch someone so new. They do the press circuit.
So true.
Yeah, I do miss the time pre-Zoom interviews. I miss the in-person access on another level. Oh my God, yeah.
Really?
Wait, okay. Now that we're touching on this, you don't feel like you have to name names.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to hear like what's a really good and then like not bad, but maybe like a surprising experience.
Because,
you have to.
Yes, because I feel like that's such a other part of journalism that people don't actually get to hear about.
Yes.
The profiles and the celebrities. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. I think, best experiences, I will absolutely name names. Because
sing their praises.
Best experiences, I like, I've had some really, really good ones. I've been hit on that I won't name those names, but that was really, really bizarre and obscure where like I've interviewed, you know, some oftentimes like rappers or like big male music artists who have famous girlfriends who then text you or DM you or
I need to know him.
Oh my God. Yeah, you're telling us offline after.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I said to me, I really think you should. This sounds disgusting coming from myself, but he was like, you know, I really think you should model for my merch. No, he said,
I think you should model for my merch.
No, I sit down and he goes, and I'm like, hi, you know, nice to meet you. I was working for V magazine. I was like, I'm working for V, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, what do you do? And I go, no, I'm like a writer. I'm here to interview, kind of duh, we're on the set of your shoot. And he said, no, I think you should just like maybe model for my merch. And I was like, that's not.
I have a job to do, sir.
Yeah.
I'm here with a job.
Drop what you're doing and get on it for the
I cannot wait to hear who that is. Probably like Tyga or something. Someone who like thinks that's something you'd want to do. Like, oh, okay.
Best experiences were definitely the Anne Hathaways of them all. Incredible, most beautiful person I've ever seen in my life in person. Brendan Urie, lead singer of Panic at the Disco, who I am just obsessed with.
He was a good one?
Oh my God, he's incredible. He's like
my
the
God,
best. The
my
best.
10-year-old self would be screaming.
Oh, I was screaming. The best man I've ever met. The worst, I think you guys know, and I don't even know if this is the worst, but it was a famous actress. We went for like a lunch brunch. She got a salad. I remember saying, what a fool. I'm such a fool. I was like, should we share some fries? And she was like, literally looked at me like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and I was like, oh, no, like, kidding.
What
like,
makes that such a bad question? Just because you assume she's like too healthy for fries?
No, she was definitely like, I'm not consuming those calories, you crazy loser. And I was like, got it. And then
who eats French fries?
Yes, yeah. And then I was also like 22, 23, and I ordered, because I wouldn't do this now, I ordered the pancakes, the blueberry pancakes.
Oh my God, yum.
I heard they were good. We were at this famous diner that had the famous blueberry. I was like, I'm going to get the pancakes.
Yeah, get the pancakes, girl. It's fine.
Seriously.
And it was such a, I think, uncomfortable interview because she was very imposter syndromic. She had so much success, but I don't think really saw it or believed it. And
it wasn't good enough for her.
It wasn't enough. Yeah. And I think she was waiting for me to kind of trip her up. It was like the early origins of cancel culture. So she was waiting for the clickbait questions. And she was really kind of cold and stiff, and I just tried to make it as conversational as possible. So I'd be like, anyway, so how was that? And then take a bite and like, oh, duh. And she literally looked at me and goes, wow, you're really putting away those pancakes. And I was like,
it is
I'm holding my scream. I'm holding my scream.
No.
I can't.
I can't. You have to, it's hats off though. That's very brave.
Very ballsy to be rude to your interviewer.
Thing to say. Could you imagine that coming out of your mouth to like absolutely anybody? Like,
well, what's the logic there? You're about to write a profile on her and you're going to be rude?
Yes.
You're gonna be rude?
Right. I think, to give her the benefit of the doubt, she was probably like, who is this girl? Like, she's so young. This is so not worth my time. Like, I'm sure that there was an element of that. But it was probably one of the most kind of inconsiderate or unaware things that someone has said to me, because obviously when you're in that position, you're watching them, not the other way around. Right. And for them to make an observation like about you in that sense was really jarring.
Oh
my God, it's so funny.
Especially
so
like
funny.
you're young, and to just be treated with such like disrespect when you're there to do a job. It's just like, how do you react?
And even being young too, of being so intimidated. I mean, and you are not, but like there would be that precedent that like you're going to get intimidated as a 20-something-year-old writing, and then a star who's been around for decades.
That was the
thing.
Were
you a fan
She's
of hers?
An absolute icon. Like, she is a fashion icon. She is a hero. She is an it girl. She is all the things. And I was obsessed with her and like copying the outfits,
heartbreaking,
living the life. So it was a really don't meet your idols kind of situation. But I've had those moments where I've met people that I have just been like, you are everything and more. You are everything. You've lived up to it all.
I have a follow-up question, but I think I'm glad that you told that story, because I think for people listening, I don't do celebrity profiles. I've only ever done a few in my life, and it was very early on in my career. But I don't think people, if you don't do celebrity profiles or any type of profile, you maybe don't realize that that can be the dynamic, or that you have to work, with someone that's maybe wants to be difficult that day or doesn't want to be interviewed. So I think that's so interesting. And my follow-up question is, do you out them in your article? Do you?
Yeah. So for me, it's super, super veiled, but you can tell. I think someone who knows me and knows my writing can always tell.
Sure.
There's an incredible Meghan Markle profile by Alison P. Davis, who I've already kind of name checked, but she obviously didn't like her, and any writer could tell. But
the writer didn't like Meghan.
Yes, but a fan of Megan might read that and think it's the most glowing feature in the world. And that is great writing. Absolutely. And that's kind of what I aim to achieve in those situations. Because, it's so hard when you have been treated badly or it was awkward or it was uncomfortable to pull out something that feels like a really positive, flattering, light. Yep. And it's just, it can be really, really tough, but I always do kind of work. I worked in the pancakes. I worked in the pancakes.
I remember you telling us that.
And you quoted her?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to read that story.
Yeah, I will send it.
That's
so
great.
Glad you did that.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah.
As you should.
As you should.
Because, wake up call to these, celebrities or whoever's being interviewed.
And they don't read their press, though. They never read their press.
Don't.
That's the other ridiculous thing. It's just you really don't care you really don't care.
Yeah, I think from a mental health standpoint, they just self-preservation-wise, they shouldn't do it. And they can't do it.
Just, I guess, their agent reads it.
Yeah, agent or publicist. I think I have obviously had a lot of people read it. Recently, I did a profile on Caitlin Riley, who's like a comedian and really, really talented. And she messaged me directly and was like, I absolutely loved it. That's amazing to have someone read it. But I think when you're interviewing someone of a certain echelon, there's just no way. They don't have they don't have the Google alerts. Sure. They don't have any concept of what's coming out and when. They're just they're showing up to do the press and then they're keeping it moving for the next interview.
Right, which is so crazy to think about, but it is probably just, for them, it's another meeting. It's a part that just goes with your job. We go to a press preview and don't think twice about it. They're just doing the same thing.
I interviewed a journalist who used to get this kind of access that I could only dream of. She went to the Bahamas with some talent. She would spend 3 days to a week with them. And she told me a story about spending 3 days with Katy Perry. And she reached a point where she was like, look, this is a lot of time to be hanging out with you. It's even us hanging out for 3 days straight without a break. And you're kind of dude, I kind of need,
right.
I've got to
need so much writing.
Yeah,
I need so much content.
This is only so many words.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
Yeah, she's I've got kind of everything I can get out of you. But it is nuts. It used to be that. It used to be so much time. I know a writer who went to Joshua Tree with Channing Tatum and they slept under the stars together. Or Chris Evans, there's a famous profile.
That fascinates me that you have the difference of that one, actress who will go unnamed, who her demeanor is I don't want to be here. And then you have other celebrities that, really care about what's going to be written about them and really care to respect the writer.
She was hey, let's have a slumber party.
Yeah,
let's
right?
go.
I know, right? Shout out Channing Tatum. That sounds fun.
I know.
But as a writer, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer, would you even jump on an opportunity to spend 3 days with Katy Perry? Or would you just be we can just have dinner? Or
right back then you were getting paid $2 a word, $3 a word. So it made sense. The payoff was there.
Right.
But, sometimes it's okay, can I take 3 days off of other work to do this out of my time? So it was a different era of media. And that's why, we talk about Carrie Bradshaw all the time and her beautiful apartment and her $500 Manolos and
the unattainable.
Yeah. But she allegedly, that was $4,000 in the 90s, $4,000 a column. That's a lot. That's a lot of money.
Can you even fathom what rates are now?
I can barely accept 400. 400 sounds great. 4,000?
Yeah,
for a column?
Something like that. If someone's going to come for me in the comments and be you were outrageous. It was never that much.
Okay, maybe you're a little hyperbolic, but we get it.
No, but
we get it. We get it.
It's a lot. It's insane.
It was a lot. It was a lot. And that's why people were how can she afford to just write this one thing a week and just run around town for the rest of it?
That would be the life.
Absolutely.
That would be the life. That would be so nice.
I know.
Then you could really relax when you're going to your press previews and not have to worry about it all.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think in that moment in time, journalists were celebrities in their own right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And listening to this journalist who I was talking about who went to the Bahamas, she was we were in the rooms. We weren't, and she was we would go back to our computers and write something snarky, but we should have been trying to make friends with Orlando Bloom. He's right there, standing next to us, we're having a cocktail.
Well, that's something I really notice in LA.
Right.
Is that the content creators or the writers or whoever, they really are considered more of even if it's under the light of an influencer or whatever, but more of a celebrity.
It is funny. We were at an event the other night and two girls from Selling Sunset like asked us to take a photo of them. And yet there's the distance that's I think there in New York isn't here the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you went to events in New York, were you seeing, like when you went to brand activations or whatever, are you seeing celebs there?
Yeah, so you're going to the Savage X Fenty launch and Rihanna's going to appear.
Of course.
But she's surrounded by a team and there are photographers and she's surrounded by a team and there are photographers and there's no access point. There's no we are the same.
No,
they are on a different section, they're on a different level. It's just like they're there to often show face because they live in LA. So they're doing the step and repeat. Yeah. And then they're keeping it moving.
It's very that like there's a set time to go like interview them or something, but they're not like out just
hanging around.
No.
And also I feel like so many people in New York too are like, don't really care.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, well if I'm using this, like sure. But otherwise like, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. And I think that's the Instagram era as well where they're so aware of a camera phone. Like they're so aware and 90s, early 2000s, they were just buck wild. Yeah. They were doing whatever they wanted with no documentation.
Exactly.
So sick. I just to be a fly on the wall during that time.
Yeah,
it
right?
is a whole other world.
Totally.
Okay, we will wrap it up, but I just lastly want to hear your, like, I keep asking this, like, curation question. So when you go about like curating your life, like what are some things or like a quote that leads you through or practices that really help you curate? Like, this is how I'm moving forward through the craziness of media, living life, LA, relationships, all of these things.
It's a great question. Sav, do you want to say?
I'll go first just because this is more about, I thought of this answer when I thought you were asking like, how do you curate your wardrobe or something like that? But all same
thing.
Exactly. Same idea. I'd say my newest theme is just like comfort.
Yeah.
Like being comfortable. I started, obviously, like I said, that was I overhauled my wardrobe recently into just like all comfortable things, like no tight skinny jeans, no tight waistbands, just like comfort. Because I find when I go out into the world and I'm comfortable, I'm a lot more present. I'm a lot nicer to people. I'm not thinking about when I have to get home to like get changed or take this makeup off, whatever. So I would just say comfort. That's my like leading theme for the moment.
That's beautiful. It's so simple, but like actually very powerful.
So simple, but I spent so much time making myself uncomfortable and thinking that that's what I needed to do to be in the spaces that I was in. You don't. You can be comfortable, whether it's physically,
ways, right?
Physically, emotionally, financially. Oh my God, literally financially, but yeah. Comfortable.
Yeah, I feel like I almost have the opposite where I think of like approaching with a certain amount of fearlessness. I think I'm in my cringe era and it's the scariest. It's the scariest way to be. It's putting yourself out there. It's like wearing the crazy thing when I wore my when I followed the pantsless trend and Sav was like, "Oh my God, you're doing the pantsless trend."
But you were killing it.
And I was like, "I know it's crazy, but here I am like being insane." So it's that, I think, and with approach to everything, with work, with relationships, it's being prepared to be cringe, dropping the ego, and just being like, who cares? Who cares? Like, as long as I'm having fun with it and maintaining my own integrity and a sense of authenticity, then it's great. Like, it's
leaning in.
No, I agree. Because if you're not having fun, it's like, what's the damn point?
Totally.
And you never know what you're going to discover if you're, not being cringe from time to time, and all of a sudden you slay a pantsless look.
Also, I don't know what, we have very definitions of cringe. I can't imagine you being cringe in my life.
Oh my God, making a TikTok for me is incredibly cringe, but I'm forcing myself to do it. It's it's that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's just, and also I think we have a tendency as women to, or it's definitely in this industry as well, to believe that we're either incapable or we don't have enough information and therefore we shouldn't kind of speak on something or assert ourselves. And that's something I've really had to learn and grow into of there's a difference between confrontational and confidence, and asking the questions and being forthcoming and fighting for yourself and your worth is a whole new world. I used to never want to be difficult. And now I realize that is the only way to
get somewhere.
To get somewhere, man. It's nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotta own yourself. And with that, I think that's like the best piece of advice.
Agreed.
We'll wrap it up. But thank you so much, guys, for joining me.
Love you.
Love you so much. Thank you for
Angel.
having us. This was so much fun.
Thank you for having us.
Of
Angel.
course.